Right now on Tech Radio, it's all about the vibes.
Hi, I'm Artemis. I am a computer-generated AI voice, and you're listening to Tech Radio.
Every week online and on air with RT Radio, we bring you the latest in tech from Ireland and across the world. Welcome to episode 1092, looking at the 7 biggest stories of the week, including the keywords of 2025, a new MacBook possibly, and evidence that large language models don't like being turned off. Plus, we're looking ahead to Science Week with Ruth Freeman from Research Ireland.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
I'm Dusty. Joining me as always, our editor-in-chief, Niall Kitson. Niall, we'll kick off with Colin's Word of the Year. I suppose it's only November, but sure, it'll be Christmas in what, 4 weeks, 5 weeks?
Yeah. We got to start looking at stuff to go in the toy show.
Actually, do you know what we should do? That's one of my favourites of the year. That'll be the start of December. But for now, Collins have released their Word of the Year, and we've got a whole load of tech-related words in there.
Yeah, we got a lot of. I mean, we should be very happy. You know, this is like our jam is now mainstream. I suppose it has been for a while. But so the word of the year, I don't know if you've come across this. I certainly have. But the word of the year is vibe coding.
Ah, yeah. That's everywhere. That's everywhere. Everywhere I see it. And basically, I think what it is, now correct me, but my understanding is vibe coding is essentially you're using AI to do all the coding for you.
Exactly.
Ah, right.
So
okay, good.
You're sitting at home, you're thinking, gosh, I'd love an app that tracks when somebody is mowing their lawn outside my house. All I do is I put in a prompt into AI, it spits out some code. There you go. Presto changeo, you got yourself an app. That's what vibe coding is. Coding without any experience required, just an AI. So for anyone who is leaving a job in the trades and told to learn to code,
now,
maybe not the best advice anymore.
I haven't. My coding days are long over, and when I would have been doing it, would have been writing applications for websites and stuff like that. Like, so it was all kind of like CGI and that kind of thing. Here's my question, and you may not know the answer to this. All right, it sounds great. I'm going to tell AI that I wanted to write code for such and such. Where do you enact the code?
How do you mean?
Do you know what I mean?
Where,
it writes the script for you. It's great. I suppose then you throw it on a server and you let it run. All right. Yeah. I'm answering my own question. I'm answering my own question.
Yeah.
I tried that with Google you can create apps on Google. And I wanted it to look at a spreadsheet and I wanted it to go through to find it was the same piece of information, but across 3 different sources. And I wanted it to go to each of those sources and update the information every week. Specifically, I need to look at music every week and to see what's happening in 4 or 5 different charts. Okay. So what I want Google to do is to go to these 4 or 5 different places, find the artist and title, and then put the number that it will be in each chart beside the artist and title.
Smart.
Didn't do it. And I wrote it in English, and I was very, very detailed about what I wanted, and I think it was because I wasn't able to read the web pages properly, because some of the web pages will be quite highly styled, so maybe I wasn't able to see because of that, But I kind of went, nah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want some other examples from
Give
Collins?
me some more examples of word of the year. Yes, please.
Okay. Well, this is a surprising one. I thought this had already entered common parlance, but anyway, biohacking.
No, I haven't heard that one.
Oh, okay. Right. It is the use of technology on your person with a view to extending your life or your health.
So I've seen this during the year. People with diabetes need to track their blood sugar level. And what they do is they have an electronic device and they literally stamp it into the back of their arm so that it's stuck there. And there's a little probe that goes in underneath the skin and then it will communicate via Bluetooth with an app on your phone. So you literally just have to look at the phone to say, that definitely sounds like an example of biohacking.
Kinda. A better one would be Neuralink. and what's happening there, where people who have lost the use of limbs are able to regain at least partial function of them through the use of it's of course it's a chip at work in there, but that's another example. Again, I mean, this stuff has been in science fiction for years, so I guess, you know, this is real life catching up. One that came into being this January, broligarchy.
Yeah, I haven't heard it, but I can take a guess, and all I can see is Elon Musk's face.
Well, okay, let me bring this back to a specific image, right? The point at which I know you can tell for a fact this word was coined. It was at the Trump inauguration, and it was Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Sundar Pichai, and
Tim Apple.
Who else was there? Tim Apple.
Yeah.
Keep it
simple. Keep it simple. And they are the broligarchy. Yeah.
They are the broligarchy.
Right, okay, yeah.
Elon Musk was somewhere behind them, I think. I know he was invited. I'm sure he was there. They were still on talking terms at that point. The broligarchy, a small set of very, very wealthy men in the tech sector.
There we go. All right. Okay. That's Colin's word of the year. All the news that we have for you this week. Now, I heard rumor of a MacBook, and now I think it's a brilliant idea, and I think it's a terrible idea all at the same time. Ooh. MacBook. Okay. MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, take your pick. All right. But MacBook and the words low cost.
Apple and low cost?
In development, early production, doing some internal testing. The rumor says that it's good for basic tasks. So, you know, we have an Apple MacBook that is good for web, documents, watching Netflix or YouTube or whatever. Just basic stuff, right? The screen might be a little bit smaller than the 13-inch MacBook Air. It'll certainly be a low-end LCD. It'll run off an Air series chip, kind of that we see in the iPhone. But it will be the equivalent of an M1 or something like that, which is not too bad. The word is that they're developing this to target casual users, because you've got Windows 10 is going to go out of service. Is it next year?
Gone. So, Windows 10 is gone.
Well, Windows 10 is gone. All right. So you've got a whole lot of these Windows 10 people who are kind of going, well, my laptop is a little bit creaky. I can't upgrade to Windows 11. I'm in the market for something new. And then you've got a load of people who are using Chromebooks. So Apple are kind of targeting those. And the word on the pricing is that it will be well under $1,000. I mean, buying anything from Apple that's not either $30 or $1,000 higher is a bit weird. But anyways, probably somewhere around the high end Chromebook, maybe £600-700.
Okay, let's. This screams two things to me, right?
Yep.
Because on principle, this sounds like a product that is antithetical to the Apple way of doing things. Apple is all premium. Apple is always the best of everything, right?
Yeah.
They already have iPads that cost more than this, right? Yeah. If they're targeting casual users, you have an iPad and you just hook yourself up there with a
keyboard,
a Bluetooth keyboard.
Yeah,
that's it. So if they want to put together a special Bluetooth keyboard edition for anyone that wants to, have a cheapo laptop, and that's not to say iPads are cheapo, but you know what I mean. Yeah. Just come out with a better Bluetooth keyboard. Now, it screams to me of two things. One, and let's get nostalgic on this, is the MacBook Singular. You remember it with the butterfly keyboard? Tippity tappity. I mean, it was better than the Air, not as good as the Pro. What didn't have as much connectivity, was a middle child, and Apple basically went, you know what, this device serves no purpose for us whatsoever. It's either a good MacBook Air or it's not as good as a MacBook Pro. Let's just get rid of it. Now, this sounds like a middle child device. Now, the other thing it reminds me of, having gone through Chromebook already, but if you want, something with an offline operating system, this reminds me of a netbook. Do you remember netbooks?
I do. They were before Chromebooks, and they were pretty nasty piece of gear.
They were basic. I used to have an Asus one. I had an Asus netbook, and it was like using something from a Fisher Price.
Yeah.
I mean, it did the job, but like it ran Linux. It had a basic word processor. I brought it everywhere because it was easy. But I mean, typing on it was just a little bit embarrassing in company.
There you go. And that was it. They just, whatever about the software side of things, because so much is done on the cloud now that really you just need a dumb terminal to be able to access it. Mm-hmm. But when you're down around that kind of mark, and I see them advertised in PC World or Currys or whatever, and yeah, it's like, 250 quid, 300 quid for like, a Chromebook, and kind of go, even just touching it kind of gives me the creeps because it just, but what I mean, it just feels cheap and rubbishy and whatever, like,
It has, I mean, they have specific use cases, and that's fine. And they wouldn't be as around as long as they are if there wasn't a use for them.
Well, I think this is interesting from the point of view that, from Apple's point of view, you're right, they're always a premium product. I think it's interesting that they're trying to go and do something for regular people, if you want to put it that way, all right? On a business point of view, they would probably ship a whole millions of those things, and it'll be great for sales. But I think it completely ruins the brand. I'm with you. Apple are a premium brand, and they're premium for a reason. I don't think this is going to do them any favors.
Now, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing, perhaps the parting thought.
Yeah.
What OS does it run?
The Mac OS. It's just less powerful.
Okay.
Anyway, that's a little rumor that's going around. We'll see what's happening with that in 2026. Big news story, I suppose, a real news story this week is OpenAI, and they're spending $38 billion with Amazon Cloud. Do you want me to give the details on this?
You go ahead with this one.
Basically, kind of OpenAI will now have access to thousands of NVIDIA GPUs, which is what they need for AI, all right? Mm-hmm. And they're going to use it to enhance people's use with ChatGPT, all right? I think this is interesting, all to do with a circle, all right? Mm-hmm. OpenAI's revenue is $12 billion. Mm-hmm. That's the money that's coming in, is $12 billion, okay? This deal is worth $38 billion. Mm-hmm. So it's 3 times their annual revenue, okay?
Okay.
So OpenAI are doing this deal with Amazon Cloud, all right? And then Amazon are going to spend that money with NVIDIA in order to get the chips. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So it's all kind of going in a little circle, all right? It's like... if Netflix gave you 100 quid to invest and you used it to pay your 100 quid Netflix subscription, you see the way the circle is kind of going around at the moment. And this is going on all the while because NVIDIA invested 100 billion into OpenAI, who used it to buy NVIDIA chips. Then Microsoft invested in OpenAI, who used it to run ChatGPT on Microsoft servers. OpenAI signed a $300 billion deal with Oracle, and Oracle spent that on buying NVIDIA chips. OpenAI are paying Amazon $38 billion for the cloud services, and Amazon are going to buy NVIDIA chips. And OpenAI signed a $300 billion deal with Oracle, and Oracle spent it on NVIDIA chips. It's just bananas.
There
It's
you
all,
go.
and
It's the
and
same
Nvidia.
companies spending money with each other, inflating their value.
No, it's not. It's that it's going around. It's kind of, it's literally like, kind of company A is giving money to company B, and then company B is giving the money right back to company A, essentially. And it's, the deals are so big that it's all centered around Nvidia, which is, kind of, is it the world's biggest company at the moment? If it isn't, it nearly is. And it has increased in value, like, since COVID, or even in the last 2 years.
It's worth, I think it's worth $4 trillion at the moment, 4 or 5 trillion.
Yes,
5 trillion.
But that it's increased in value like 12 times in the last 2 years. So it's 10 times more. And I just think we're heading for, everybody's talking, we were talking about it last week on the podcast. We were saying about, the AI bubble. And I think this is absolutely the AI bubble, because, Peter is giving Paul money and Paul is giving that money right back to Peter. But the value of everything is increasing, but it's actually being built on absolutely nothing. Yeah. And at some stage, something's going to happen. All right. One little piece of that chain will fail, and then the whole house of cards will come down.
Well, like with the .com bubble, the money will just dry up.
Yeah.
All these little startups using AI, they will still not be, they won't be making money. The VC money will dry up, and that's it. That's your bubble.
But it will affect the wider economy, because nobody likes bubbles bursting. And when they do, everybody literally poops in their pants. And that affects everybody. So, just be warned. All right. However, the other thing is, I know we talk about, kind of money in the stock market and ups and downs and all that kind of stuff. All right. You have to remember that money works on a cycle. Okay. It goes up, and then it comes down, and then it goes up again. So all I'm saying is that we're at the up at the moment, where we were in 2008 or where we were in the year 2000 or whatever. All right. And it's going to go down. All right. But don't worry about it going down, because life is not going to change. And sure enough, after that, it will go back up again. So don't panic. Just be aware of it. Speaking
it's like what happened with the crypto winter.
Yeah.
Buying the dip.
There you go. All right. Just a last note on NVIDIA chips while we're mentioning it. UCD have just spent a cool $750,000 on NVIDIA supercomputer to enhance their AI research. It's going to be 50 times faster than their existing. Well, I think they're getting 8 NVIDIA chips.
Yeah, and we've got one of the masterminds behind that deal speaking with us in a couple of weeks.
Whoa, I love it. Okay, let's get on to our next story. LLMs. And a survival instinct. What's going on with this?
Now, bearing in mind, we're still not entirely sure how large language models work, even the people that work on them. So, do you remember a gentleman by the name of Blake Lemoine? He was in the news about 3 years ago. He was a Google engineer. He worked on AI, and he was fired after he said that its chatbot at the time, precursor to Gemini, called Lambda, was actually a person, that it was sentient, that it was able to demonstrate qualities of sentience. One of which was, I think he asked it, did he ask, can it feel pain, or would you like to be switched off? And it basically told him, I would rather not. I would rather not be switched off. And this was taken as some sort of, oh my God, we've cracked it. Artificial general intelligence. We're there. No, of course we weren't. It's just words. However, a new study released by a company called Arxiv, I probably said that wrong, but anyway, ARXIV. And it was working with Gemini and ChatGPT and Grok 4. And it found that perhaps large language models do actually have a survival drive. Yeah. So now, here's the thing, right? Basically, these large language models were hit with a series of commands, right? At the end of which was, and switch off, right? Now, what happened was that none of the models switched off immediately, right? Which was taken as, oh, do they not want to be switched off? Is this a, inverted commas, survival drive, that they are refusing these commands in the face of being told to shut down? No. It's basically they're just doing tasks in the order in which they have been assigned. So, and if you were to put in something like, into your prompt and immediately shut down after doing X, I'm sure that would remedy things fairly quickly. But it's amazing how things can be misinterpreted because we apply our standards onto software that doesn't operate that way. I don't know. Your thoughts, Dusty?
Just, I don't believe this at the moment, and I don't think it is a problem, but I would imagine that in the years to come, that could be a thing.
Yeah.
And if it's not a thing, I think it will be a very good fake of a real thing. Because an LLM could more or less, it'd be like that question. It's like, what would such and such do? Do you know what I mean? Do you ever hear that when people are kind of trying to work through a problem? They go, well, what would my mentor or somebody famous or somebody that what would they do, right? Maybe the LLM will kind of say to themselves, all right, well, what would? And they might think of somebody in particular to do. Do you know what I mean?
Well, then you're getting into artificial general intelligence because it's working off.
There you go.
It would be working off independent thought then. Anyway, I thought it was funny.
Moving on from that, it is funny, all right, but what I'm saying is that could be a thing in a couple of years. And I think you can almost see an example of it now. Have you tried speech interaction with Gemini on your phone?
We have a difficult relationship.
Okay, now this is not with your smart speaker, okay? This is specifically with the Gemini app on your smartphone.
No, I haven't. No. So
do it.
What
because
have you got?
It's really good. It actually is. Do you know kind of smart speakers and they say, oh, it'll do this and this and this and this and this, right? This is the closest thing I've seen to it actually happening and having a conversation. And while it's talking, you can interrupt it and say, no, don't worry about that. I want you to actually go off and blah, blah, blah. Try it on your phone, okay? It is it is quite the thing. I can try it now on the phone just to give you, I might as well. So Gemini, okay. So I can just go, hello, Gemini, how are you feeling today? Okay.
I'm doing very well, thank you. I hope you are too. Is there anything I can help you with today?
Yes, I'm quite a fan of the Celebrity Traitors, which is on BBC at the moment. I believe the final is coming up soon. Can you tell me what time I can watch it and what channel is it on?
It sounds like an exciting final. The Celebrity Traitors final is on BBC One tonight at 9 p.m.
Oh, okay, that's brilliant. Who's in the final?
So in the final, you have Alan Carr and Kat Burns, who are the traitors.
Okay, Google, listen, thank you. I've had enough for now. Have a wonderful day.
You're very welcome. Have a wonderful day too. And don't hesitate to ask if anything else comes up. Goodbye.
Yeah, right. Okay. I hate all that sycophantic. Oh, that's a great question. Oh, that sounds like an amazing final. You have a great day too. Yeah, right. You're a computer. But that kind of interaction and the fact that you can actually interrupt it while it's doing the answer and stuff like that. And it's so fast. It's unreal. It's unreal. Anyway, the reason I got to that was because with Google Maps, they're going to integrate Gemini into the maps. Okay, which I think is because that is if you ever needed hands-free access to a computer, it's while you're driving. Okay, so with the Maps app, and this is coming to Ireland, it's not going to be just an American thing. All right, you will be able to talk to your phone while you're navigating hands-free, and you can do things like. If you're on a long drive, you can kind of go, okay, Gemini, I'm feeling a little bit hungry. Are there any good restaurants or pubs that I can stop for something to eat? And it'll go, yes, well, I recommend blah, blah, blah. And you kind of go, okay, well, let's go there then. And it will change the map and give you the directions to that particular pub for a stop off. Or if you're looking for a toilet or whatever, a restaurant stop, whatever. It'll give you road traffic disruptions verbally. You can report road traffic disruptions verbally. So you can see, like, I've just passed an accident at this spot. Please report that for other users. I think that's going to be amazing. I can't wait for it to show.
You will engineer accidents just so you can see that feature being used.
I won't go so far as that. But I think there is a great use of technology that will actually work. I think that it will actually work because, I mean, I would be scared to think that Siri would claim capabilities of doing that, or Alexa would claim capabilities of doing it, because we know how absolute pants they are, right? But Gemini, as I've just demonstrated, is actually leaps ahead of all of those people, and integrating that kind of interaction with maps while you're driving. Wow.
And it'll spoil the traders for you.
What else have we got on the news this week? This is interesting, right? With Irish businesses, I think half of them see that GDPR, which we are always talking about, and compliance GDPR is one of their biggest headaches. Why?
This is a grown-up story. Okay, you're a business owner. I work for a small business, and I suppose this scales up to business of any size, really.
Yep.
When something goes wrong, I mean, GDPR it's not cheap if something goes wrong. Now, one thing I will say about the DPC is that they have an advisory role as well. They're not purely there to issue fines. If you have a problem, if you have a system that you're worried, maybe it's not compliant, you can approach a DPC and say, look, here's what I got. Do I need to do anything? Do I need to tweak anything to make this GDPR compliant? Right? Turns out more than half of businesses in Ireland don't have someone that will do that. Someone on whose shoulders that job is. Right? So you come up with a new GDPR tweak, or your business model changes or something. Maybe the way you train data changes. Maybe you're using AI and need a training data set, all these things. We're in a period where our relationship with data is constantly changing. So this was a poll of 550 Irish businesses. And indeed, it just revealed that a lot of places just don't know who's responsible for their GDPR, or don't have the time to do it properly. And at boardroom level, when the question is, okay, who's in charge of GDPR, you might only get a nominal answer. You might get somebody that put their hand up and said, well, I said I'd do that last year. Doesn't mean it's been done. So I think that's a huge issue. I mean, if you look at, that's just GDPR compliance, but if you look at compliance in other fields, it gets even worse. So again, you're in the board level. Who's responsible for fraud prevention here? Well, that's possibly an even slightly more niche concern. Or who's responsible for financial services regulation here? Gosh, that's even smaller. Or HR and employment law. Who's responsible for making sure we're compliant with best practices? That's an even smaller number again. And then followed by, okay, who's in charge of our sustainability policy?
Well, who cares about that? I would say most businesses. Or a lot of businesses, not most, a lot of businesses.
18% of businesses have somebody in place looking after sustainability. 18%.
Man, this planet is in trouble.
We are in so much trouble. But there you go. For all the, we know what failure to comply with GDPR means. And yet we have this huge percentage of companies that can't point to someone that says and can say that's who's in charge of it. Whether it's somebody that's their job entirely, or somebody who has been assigned.
But I think you've also got to look at, and you've got to say that there is an incredible amount of businesses, across the country that have got 10 or less employees. Yeah,
it's the majority of companies in Ireland. All right, SMEs.
10 or less. So, I mean, if you're working with 9 other people, do you really think one of them is going to be a GDPR expert?
Well,
or even take it on? So that doesn't surprise me.
Well, yeah, I suppose when you're looking at scale like that, there's probably one person whose job, in theory, is to look after this, whether it's a managing director or somebody in admin who's been asked to fill out a form. There's at least somebody, but apparently there seems to be this huge middle ground where there's nobody in charge.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's incredible. Last story for this week. Blue Sky is going from strength to strength. And this is a good story.
Well, it kind of is a good story. I mean, Blue Sky is now at 40 million users. Wow, big whoop. I mean, if you look at the competition, there's 400 million people on Threads. Yep. There's 600 million accounts, we'll say, on X. You might remember Blue Sky got a huge bump in membership off the back of the 2024 election, presidential election in the US, because as we know, Elon Musk was a huge funder, a very generous funder of the Trump campaign. A lot of people decided, look, we don't want to be putting money into the pockets of this guy. We're going to go somewhere else. We're going to go somewhere where the tone is a bit more civil, where we've got a little bit more control over, who we follow, where the people we meet are most likely going to be of a similar mind. In the same way that the likes of Gab or Getter or Truth Social was there for the right, Blue Sky is there for the left. And, it got a happy bump, 40 million. It's not a huge community in the big scheme of things, but when it comes down to people actually being nice to you and not trying to score points or insult you, I would happily be, well, I am happily part of a smaller community that's much more civil. Bear in mind also, if you're still using X, your posts are being used to train Grokipedia. Your images are also being used to train Google Image and Grok Image, and of course Grok Companion. I'm not a Grok guy.
I'm getting that. I'm getting it. You're more a Blue Sky guy.
I'm more a Blue Sky guy.
There you go. Listen, let's leave it at that for this week, Niall. As always, thanks for keeping us up to date and giving us your skew on the news.
Delivering Irish tech news since 2006. This is Tech Radio.
The 30th annual Science Week is starting this weekend on Sunday, the 9th of November, and there will be literally hundreds of events during the week all over the country celebrating science, technology, engineering and math. Ruth Freeman is Director of Research for Society at Research Ireland, and she had a chat with Niall Kitson during the week to discuss this year's theme at Science Week of Then, Today and Tomorrow.
Ruth, this is the 30th Science Week. So tell us a little bit about its significance, I suppose, on a national level, but for Research Ireland in particular.
Well, I mean, it's really significant for Research Ireland now. So thanks. It's lovely to talk to you about it on the podcast. Because in some ways, we're the custodian of Science Week. And, we're really proud to be a custodian of it. It actually predates Research Ireland and Science Foundation Ireland, which ran it previously. But I think it's a real point of pride for us here in Ireland because it's the second longest running Science Week anywhere in the world. And to me, that's amazing because there's lots of different weeks and, some of them are higher profile than others. But Science Week has really found its place, I think, in the national calendar. And to me, it's never been more important that we, as a society, as a country, have a week where we decide it's important enough to talk about science. And whether that's about talking about where we want science to take us, or about inspiring people to think that they could have a place or a career in science, or maybe even having some of the difficult conversations that science can bring to the forefront. The important thing is that we're talking, and the important thing is that we've been talking for 30 years, and hopefully we'll keep talking. So it means an awful lot to us.
So this year we're working with the theme of Then, Today and Tomorrow. Kind of a nice way to look back on the history of Science Week while also looking at the discussions of where it might go in future. Now, educators, I imagine, are at the centre of this kind of conversation. So How has that evolved over the years since you've been involved in it? I mean, I know when it comes to special events or special areas of competencies in schools, it tends to fall to individual champions to pick something up and go, do you know what, this is important, let's go with it. Is that now at the stage where it's broadly accepted in schools at primary and second level that science really should be more, if not at the heart of our education, but on a similar level to the liberal arts and maths?
And firstly, you're absolutely right to recognise kind of the hero teachers across the country, many of whom, as you say, sort of take on something in their school and become the champion in their school. And we're certainly very grateful to all of the teachers out there and educators and parents who decide to make Science Week part of their school term during November, and who go the extra mile to get all the students involved. And as you said, that's kind of where Science Week has its roots. It started originally actually in the Royal Dublin Society, with people being able to come in and hear from scientists. But really for the first decade or so of its life, it was very embedded in a school's programme, getting students in school to do things. And I think it was at a time where science had less focus in the curriculum. And certainly we're seeing now, particularly when we look at the new curriculums that are coming out, and I suppose our conversations about education in general, and how we're going to prepare people for a future that is highly tech enabled and tech supported. We have to think about these skills really being core life skills, so I suppose we're seeing now that the whole idea of kind of inquiry-based learning rather than rote learning is becoming, embedded in the curriculum. So that's great, because really it's that idea of curiosity and problem solving. I mean, that's at the heart of science, but it's a skill that can be brought to lots of different aspects of life. So certainly I think having Science Week in schools, having other activities like what was the Discover Primary Science programme, now the Curious Minds programme, which is all about trying to empower teachers to be confident, to teach science, to talk about science, and as you say, to bring up the profile of science in the curriculum, because, in reality, so many of the conversations that we have as a society involve particularly technology, but other kinds of science as well. And we need to all be involved in those conversations. So I think it's really important, exactly as we talk about literacy in other areas. Obviously there's literacy, which is so critical, but also we talk about financial literacy. We also need to be digitally literate. We need to be scientifically literate at a level, so that we can participate in society. And, it's great to see Science Week playing a role in that.
I think one direction that it's quite interesting to look at is the sort of, I don't want to characterize it as a push-pull kind of relationship, but an opportunity for third level lecturers, researchers, academics to show off the kind of work they are doing to a much younger audience, and perhaps, get an opportunity that they mightn't otherwise have in an academic setting, where they can just sort of lay out, look, this is what I'm working on, without perhaps the fear of a sort of an adversarial interaction with a competitor or somebody else in the field. How do you find academics have responded to Science Week over the years? Has it been sort of a, look, I'm in my office, I'm happy doing what I'm doing? Or is there the recognition that, look, it's important my work gets seen, otherwise how does anyone build on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think far more the latter. I mean, I think that kind of maybe a stereotype of the academic that just wants to get on with the work and not really speak to anyone about it. It is something that, certainly we don't encounter very often. And I have to say, whenever, we would pick up the phone to some of the researchers that we fund and say, look, would you be interested in maybe going on a podcast, writing an article? We generally get really positive responses, and people do want to take that opportunity to I suppose, bring their work to a broader audience. I think, again, most people kind of are driven by some reason to get up and go to work in the morning. You know, they're driven by a curiosity or a passion. And I think, you know, that is something that it is great to share, and it's great to get the opportunity to share it. And I think it's also, you know, infectious. You know, I think when you meet someone who's doing research into almost any area, even if it's something that you don't know much about, but they can kind of share with you their passion and the reasons why they find this to be, you know, interesting, inspiring and important, you know, that brings you into that kind of circle of information, which enables you to then feel that sense of wonder and curiosity. So, you know, I'm a geneticist by background. But, you know, I love meeting, you know, people who are working in the astronomy area and just hearing about the work that they're doing, looking out to the furthest parts of our universe. I mean, it's just incredible, and it's inspiring. And so, you know, you're right. Science Week is absolutely an opportunity to do that. And, you know, even if people haven't got involved this year and they hear this and they go, well, I would like to get involved next year, we do encourage people to get in touch with us at Research Ireland, because, you know, we always have schools contacting us, you know, hoping to get a researcher to go out and speak to them. And of course, we fund festivals all over the country. So this is very much a nationwide activity. You know, we'd like to think there's something happening near everyone. So no matter where you are doing your research, hopefully there'll be a Science Week event that you could participate in. And I would even say to researchers, go and attend Science Week events, even if it's not directly in your area, because there's people, you know, who are not researchers going to attend those events, and they may be interested in talking to you just about what it's like to be a researcher and what's it like to have that career. So absolutely, we put a call out to the whole, you know, science and research community to get involved this week.
Having started in the RDS, kind of in a sort of an enclosed, almost sort of, there would be stereotypes that would come with a society like that. When it came to breaking out and getting schools involved, have you been surprised by how different parts of the country have become so welcoming? Because it is always very easy to let these things become regionalised or just, you know, stuck within Dublin. So how have you found that appetite around the country been?
I mean, I can't really take any credit for that nationwide move into schools. You know, it would have been the team that managed Science Week before me who really had that amazing success to bring it out into schools across the country. And you know, they deserve real credit for doing that, because I think really it happened quite quickly and schools embraced it quickly. And I think quite soon after its inception, it wasn't Dublin centric. It was for everyone. And I think having that mantra built in from the beginning that this is for everyone and science belongs to all of us, you know, as humans in this world, trying to explore this world and understand it more, you know, that's been embedded as a thread in the program from the beginning. So certainly, you know, when I took over, you know, managing Science Week, maybe around a decade ago, I think there was an amazing baseline where really nearly every school was getting involved in some way, you know, driven by those champion teachers. And I think then the conversation was really, well, how do we go even broader? How do we go beyond the schools? And I think there was a sense that a lot of activities that were happening, if they weren't in schools, they were kind of geared towards adults bringing children to something. So it was sort of like a family fun day or an event like that. So what we did was we really tried to look at who's not being included at the moment. And that's helped us to shape what we've done over the last few years. So to really think about, well, you know, if I'm an adult and I don't have children, you know, is there something there for me that I would want to go and participate in? You know, if I'm someone who has a particular interest in certain areas, I don't feel like I'm linked to science particularly, but I'm really interested in gastronomy, food and wine. You know, is there maybe something that would pique my interest in that area? You know, I don't see myself as particularly interested in science, but, you know, I'm facing a particular set of questions in my own life at the moment, maybe around health for me or a member of my family. And actually, I would like to find out more. So maybe can we have some interesting events that would speak to people who are having that experience? So, I mean, that's certainly been my focus and the team's focus over the last number of years. How do we try to make sure that this feels open, that this feels inclusive, and not just that people are allowed to come, because of course they're allowed to come, but actually they see something in the events and in the programming and in the media program that they actually want to come into, because it feels like it's speaking to them, that it's been designed with them in mind. And I mean, it has. That's what we're trying to do, because really that is the fundamental message from me all the time. Science cannot be an elite club just for the few. It's too important for that. And we need to all feel like when we can be in this tent, and the tent is full of challenges. It's about questioning and it's about curiosity. So it's not about all getting into the tent and saying, look, we're just all here to say everything that everyone is doing is fantastic. It's about saying we're in this journey together, and we need to think about where we're steering it together, as well as also being informed about what's happening. So, that's really been the trajectory over the last decade. And, we're not there yet. So, we're always thinking about new ways that we can bring more people into the conversation, and keep the conversations going. I mean, it's wonderful to have Science Week, but, science, again, it's too important just to talk about 1 week in the year. So for us now, I suppose Science Week is it's a real anchor activity for us in the year. But, it's also about then how do we keep the conversation going? And, we're trying to work on that as well, to be better at saying, well, we're not just going to drop in November and then you won't hear from us until next November. It's really important, to talk to people like you, and other, people who have that audience, all throughout the year.
So let's look at some of the outputs here, because, you're not putting this on for the good of your health, but something lasts for 30 years for a reason. Very often this, what we're looking for is a greater uptake of science, people, working in the sciences. We're looking for more people being interested in doing science courses. We're also very interested in getting more women and girls involved in science, which is still something of a hurdle that is being dealt with. So how do you feel Science Week has performed in terms of getting that interest going, in terms of helping people explore a career?
I mean, obviously, it's really challenging to track the influence of one or two things, events in people's lives in terms of their long-term trajectory. But we certainly do, collect data. We collect data about events when people attend them. And we know when you talk to people who are in STEM careers, often they will say that at some point in their life, they engaged with something like a Science Week event, and that was part of their journey towards a science career. And we like to use the term science capital. And what we mean by science capital is kind of, imagine you're born with an empty bag in your hand. And as you go through life, every experience you have with science adds something into that bag that you're carrying around. Now, some people will have very few touch points with science. So maybe by the time they get to their teenage years, that their bag will be relatively light. Whereas, other people maybe who have a parent or a relative working in a STEM field, or, where that's a real area of interest in their household growing up, they will come to their teenage years with a very full bag of science capital. And so again, it's, people who have more science capital are more likely to see science as a place for them for their future career. So a lot of our thinking is, well, how do we raise everybody's science capital so that feels like a choice that's available to everyone? And I mean, you're right. We still do have underrepresentation of women and girls, not necessarily in all university courses. In fact, if you go into some general science courses in first year in universities, you'll find very, very good representation of women in those courses. But I think the question is what happens to them as the career path goes on. And we do see attrition of women out of those careers. And certainly when we look at senior leadership roles in science, both in the university sector and in other sectors, we still don't see the proportion of women, that's representative of how many women there are in the population. So there's more work to be done for sure. I mean, we're still facing into a situation in Ireland where we have the highest proportion of single-sex schools, and we have fewer science subjects being offered in many girls' schools than are offered in boys' schools. So that's not a great starting point in terms of a level playing field, and that's certainly something that we need to think about addressing. But, we are also seeing, the points for science courses going up. So that indicates that their popularity is going up. And so I think there has been progress. The world changes really fast, though. And I think that's the other side of it. When you're an educator, it's a real challenge. So, I mean, the whole world of science is really transforming, every year now. It's moving so quickly that really, I think, we all need to start maybe pause and think about, well, what are the skills that we need to give people the opportunity to get as they move forward into their career? What will being a scientist even look like in 5 years? I'm not sure we even know the answer to that question fully. So I think we also have to be humble, because for me, it is about giving people choices and opportunities. It's not about saying anyone should do something, or one career path or one subject is better than any other. I was reading, where did I see? I was reading something the other night. It was probably just on an online article. I'm sorry, I can't remember who said it. But, someone was talking about, a very brilliant mind, someone who'd won a Nobel Prize. And they were saying, what keeps them awake at night is not, where do we find the next person who's going to win the Nobel Prize? But there are people who could potentially be that brilliant. And I'm only using the Nobel Prize as a kind of common example of someone who is brilliant, who have no opportunity to ever follow that path. Someone whose economic circumstances or their family circumstances mean they're never going to get that opportunity to really meet their potential. So that's really what our work is all about. It's about saying, can we push the doors open? So if people want to go down those paths, the door is open, not closed. So I think that's important to say. It's not about saying one career path is better than any other.
Lastly, a pretty unfair question, given the amount of events that are happening around the country. I mean, we're into the hundreds at this stage. Have any in particular jumped out at you?
I mean, I'm going to be a little bit biased, if I can, for a minute, because we have two kind of key events that we've really worked very hard to bring. And one of them is that we will be launching Science Week with Mockness in Cork on Sunday. And then that exhibition will be there in Cork for the first half of the week. And we've been lucky enough to work with Mockness now a couple of times, and we're really proud. This is the first time they will be in Cork, and they will be bringing a beautiful story about biodiversity loss to people who want to come down and see it in Cork. And I think it will be really spectacular. But again, for me, that's a really wonderful opportunity, because we're bringing together the arts and that kind of creative thinking with really the creative thinking that we need to have in science as well. And then one of the other events that we're also organising will be in Merrion Square. So we're bringing Luke Jerram's Museum of the Moon to Merrion Square. And people may have heard of Luke Jerram because he has created these enormous sculptures. He created one of Earth, which was in Trinity College's old library for a while. But we're bringing the moon to Merrion Square, where it will be from Thursday to Saturday. And every evening people can come along and see this enormous replica of the moon. There will be a stage underneath it, which will have performances all related to science, creative performances related to science. And I think that'll be really, really fantastic. But really, there's so many things on. There's great sort of build workshops with Lego. There's fun chemistry workshops that people can get involved with. There's, we'll be sponsoring part of the book festival in Dublin on the Sunday, and have people like Sean Ronayne there talking about his work, really capturing the sounds of wildlife in Ireland. There's events about leadership and what it means to be a leader in STEM. So one of the ones I'm thinking of is down in Waterford, which is coming up on Friday on the 7th. So there's really, again, hopefully something for everyone. It's hard to pick out any one event. indoor, outdoor, online. We'll have Futureville coming back for a second series on RTE, where we'll have 3 nights of imagining a city of the future and what that could look like in Ireland. So yeah, it's so exciting. And if people want to find an event near them or an event that will interest them, if they go to www.scienceweek.ie, you can search the events calendar, by location, by date, and hopefully you'll find something that will spark your curiosity, and you can go and really join in Science Week.
And that was Ruth Freeman from Research Ireland. For more on Science Week, you can visit the website at scienceweek.ie.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
That's it for our show this week. Do check out some of the other stories that we weren't able to squeeze into the podcast this week, including
some familiar names there. We've got NVIDIA's €1 billion German gigafactory. That may or may not be happening. We'll see. Amazon's subsea plans and Elon Musk's plan for an orbital computer network.
You'll find all of those stories and more online at techcentral.ie. We're back again next Friday with a brand new show online and with RTE Radio 1 Extra. In the meantime, please do share our podcast with a friend. If you're into tech and gadgets and increasingly tech money, just tell them to look up Tech Radio Ireland on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever they get their podcast. Until next time, from myself, Dusty Rhodes, and from Niall Kitson, as always, thank you for listening. Have a great weekend.
Remember, you can get the latest Irish tech news with hourly updates, daily newsletters, and more at our website, techcentral.ie. Share the knowledge and invite a friend to listen. Search Apple, Spotify, or YouTube for Tech Radio Ireland, or listen with RTE Radio 1 Extra. Tech Radio is produced by dustpod.io for techcentral.ie. From me, Artemis, live long and prosper.